call this meeting of the Public Safety Committee to order. This is the agenda for this meeting was posted in the office of the county clerk on the 13th day of May 2020. Notice was sent to the West Bend Daily News, Express News, WIBD, WMBZ Radio, WTKM Radio, My Community Now, Hartford Times Press, Kewaskum Statesman, Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. This meeting is in compliance with the open meetings requirements. Let's all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so first item on our agenda is the election of our vice chairperson. So I'm going to nominate Supervisor Jim Berg for that position. Will you accept that nomination? Yep. Are there other nominations for vice chair? Okay, seeing none, I will accept a motion to close nominations and cast the unanimous ballot. Okay, motion by Supervisor Marquardt. Need a second? Okay. Second by Supervisor Milliken. Did I say that right? Yeah. Okay, good. Okay, all in favor of casting the unanimous ballot and closing nominations, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay, motion carries. Congratulations, Thank Supervisor Berg. Yep. All right, we're not supposed to shake hands, are we? Oh, well. Okay, next up is the consent agenda. I need a motion to accept the consent agenda. Okay, I was Supervisor Marquardt, right? Need a second? Second. Okay, I think Supervisor Gannering was first. So Supervisor Gannering seconds. All those in favor of accepting the consent agenda, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Oh, were there any questions on the consent agenda? I think we were supposed to do that before we voted. Okay, don't see any questions. All right, good. All right, we're going to move the agenda around a little bit. I think next thing we're going to do is we have a vicious dog determination. Let's move that next so that that gentleman can be heard. And is that? Okay. All right. Okay. So would you like to tell us a little bit about why you're appealing the determination?
Well, because I don't think the dog is vicious at all. And his name is Strauss. He's a purebred German Shepherd. And we did have a couple of instances that happened with him. But two of the incidents happened when he was on a chain in his fence with strangers that came up and put their hand in the fence while he was chained up in the fence. One of them was actually where he was in my garage. And then the third one was my security alarm went off at the house and some officers came over there, and when the babysitter opened the door, the dog ran out and jumped up. And I'm not sure if he bit or nipped or his toenail got him in the arm, but that was the third instance. But since then, we started taking more precautions with it, and he's on a leash or somebody's around there, he's totally fine. We have a 5-year-old little boy, he's 5, and the dog is perfect with all kids and everybody when we're home, but when we're not there, he just doesn't like strangers, I guess you could say, which that's a typical dog. But since then, and we had a couple of talks, we did get him into training for being aggressive at a door. And we put more things in guidelines. Now we have a kennel by the door, so if somebody knocks in the door, the dog goes in the kennel before the door actually gets open. And then he also had a surgery, which cost me about $9,000. So this dog is very important to us. And so he's not neutered yet, but he's on the schedule for next week, Wednesday, to get neutered, and we think that's going to bring that down a little bit also. So if he was a vicious dog, I'd be the first one to say either he needs to go, which probably would be number one, or probably wouldn't be sitting here saying not to do this here. So that's what I want to say about it. You know, he's a great dog, and he's a little young yet. You know,
How old is he?
he's gonna be 5.
He's gonna be 5?
He's gonna be 5. Yep. So we got, you know, when Leroy was born, we got the dog. That's how we got Leroy Strauss out of it. And since we've been working with him more, you know, he's definitely settled down quite a bit more. Also, you know, we're driving a professional to show us, you know, how to work with that stuff and everything. And he does bark when people come, but he doesn't jump around anymore. So it's only been a couple of weeks. So, you know, once we were at it for a couple of months, it's going to be a lot better.
Yeah.
So he just doesn't, he deserves to, you know, he doesn't deserve to be called vicious because he's not.
Yeah. What questions do other supervisors have?
The length of time that this has been going on is how long?
I would say it was over the period of a couple of months in the same year. There was a stranger that walked up my driveway about a quarter mile long. Some photographer decided that it was beautiful, and instead of walking down the driveway, and then walked through my electronic gates and walked up to this kennel. And then the other incident was a couple months after that. It was an ex-employee I fired because he was on drugs, and he drove to Menominee Falls, turned it on, drove all the way back to my house at work, and went in my garage and got bit by my dog. And then with the police, it was you know, a couple, 2 or 3 months after that when my alarm went off. So it was all in the period of about 6 months, maybe a year. I'm not exactly sure, but that's probably pretty close.
But actually, it sounds like all the instances, he was protecting his area. That's what he was doing.
That's what he was doing.
I'm a dog owner, or have been a dog owner all my life. I don't care if I had a Springer Spaniel or a little Cocker or whatever I had, they were the same way. So he came onto my grounds, they were going to protect it. I understand where the dog is coming from. It is a big dog, and I'm glad to hear that you went for professional help, because I did that with all of my dogs.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, and he is a great dog, and that just reminded me, I wanted to add one more thing. We live on about 10 acres of land out there, and he knows his boundaries, and he never, ever leaves his boundaries. Well, that was before, because ever since this started happening, now we keep him on a chain and must protect him for a walk and throwing the ball and stuff like that. It's not like he runs up the street or anything like that. He just doesn't do that. You know, he loves his home, and I definitely appreciate that too.
Other questions?
So you didn't have him neutered. Was there a reason for not having him neutered? Did you breed him?
Yeah, no, not at all. And we have no intentions on doing that. When we got him, after about a year, he started like back gaining weight and feeling sick, and I had to rush him to the emergency vet. What happened was, when he was born, his stomach was turned and it grew tight like that. And so basically, I had 2 options: either to put him down or go through the surgery. And there was like a 70% chance on that surgery. And we took the chance with the surgery, and it turned out to be perfect after that. But they said that we had to wait a certain amount of time in order to have him neutered, because they didn't want to put him for trauma again. And then when we had the first one scheduled, and then there was something wrong going on over at the UW in Madison, so it was canceled. And then we had the second one scheduled, and then this stuff came up, and then now we have next month.
So, but you realize that especially males, if they're not neutered, they are more aggressive.
I understand it, yes.
So if you're not going to breed them, I've owned dogs for 35 years, Huskies, which can be aggressive too. Not going if they're not going to be bred, they need to be neutered or spayed, because it causes all kinds of problems. Females, if they're not spayed, unneutered males will be, coming over your house all the time. So, but unneutered males are predominantly, they're the ones that are the fighters, they're the ones that are aggressive. And no real good reason why you shouldn't have had it done.
Well, there actually is. After the surgery, they told me I should wait at least 2 years, which I did. And then we tried to get a bed, and then we scheduled the appointment, and then something was going on over at the UW in Madison. That's where we were gonna take it to the state clinic over there. And they couldn't do it, and then they rescheduled it. When they canceled again, then we actually called a different place now, and now we're going,
But he's 5 years old, right?
what's that?
You said he's 5 years old.
He's about 5 years old, yeah.
You should have, if you're not going to breed the dog, you should have him neutered before he's a year old, so they don't have those learned behaviors of that aggressiveness. So this is something that even now that he's going to be neutered, the aggressiveness is not going to go all the way back to where it would be had he been neutered at like 4 to 6 months old. So that's kind of a learned behavior. So it's going to help a little bit, but it's not going to correct the problem.
Sure.
Okay. Other questions? And then I think Sheriff Schultes, do you have any thoughts you want to add?
Yes, yeah, so the public policy decision that put forth before you is that if you're going to support the determination that the sheriff's office made that I made. And let me tell you from the onset, this is not a decision that the sheriff's office or I take lightly at all, because there's huge financial implications for the dog owner as far as insurance and confinement. So I don't take that determination lightly at all. But just so you know, the process of how it works is that whenever there's a dog complaint, an officer responds, takes whatever action that they deem necessary for that particular incident. And what usually happens is a supervisor will forward the complaint to me and let me know if it's a historical problem that needs to be addressed or not. So that's kind of the starting point, is that I look at the totality of the occurrence. And so per Washington County Code, they keep, just so you have an understanding of what the vicious dog is, how it's defined. It's under chapter 172-13. And it's defined by county code as any dog with a tendency or disposition to attack, cause injury, or otherwise endanger the safety of a human being or domestic animals, as evidenced by its habitual repeated chasing, snapping, barking, or snarling in a threatening manner, or any dog which attacks a human being or other domestic animal without provocation, or any dog used for dog fight, which obviously doesn't apply to that. So part of the county code, and that's what happens. A letter was written to Mr. Is it Martin? Okay. Deeming a copy of that is part of your packet, along with a copy of the county ordinance. And I am not asking the Public Safety Committee has the ability to request that the dog is destroyed. I am not suggesting that at all. I mean, obviously, Mr. Martinez, he really cares for his dog and is trying to do some things. So what I'm just asking is that he confirms the leash and muzzle requirements, indoor and outdoor confinement requirements, prohibition on multiple dwelling, which that's not even an issue with his property, signs and insurance requirements set forth in county code. So just so you know the timing of this, so I sent out the letter to him in end of February, and the reason why the delay here is so there was 3 occurrences that occurred within a 15-month period, so a little off on the timing of it. The latest one was February 15th, so like a week or so after that we issued the letter. And if you remember, we had the COVID thing, so we didn't have a meeting in March, a public safety meeting in March. In fact, it was canceled. I actually forgot to advise the dog owner of that. April was kind of a transition period. We didn't have on the board, so that's what brought us to May here right now. So what I would say is that what concerns me, some of the factors, and Supervisor Goddard hit it right on the head too. One of the major factors I look at is did it occur off premise or on premise? That's a major consideration for me. If you remember the community that was here the last time we did this, it all occurred off premise. That was a much easier decision to make to me. Here it's a little tougher because it is occurring on the premise of the dog. But the problem that I have is that so there are really 4 individuals that the dog went after in a 15-month period. 3 of them were bit. All 3 required medical treatment. The latest, and it some of the facts there, I wasn't there, so I guess I can't speak to it. I'm relying on the police reports, but I think some of the fact scenario might be a little different than what was presented here. But namely the photographer, what the reports reflect anyways is that the photographer was at the door, and how she got there, I don't think that's up for debate. How walking around the gate and walking up to the door, but at least the reports reflect that she was at the door and the chain for the dog was long enough to get to the door, and that's where she was bit by the door rather than the fortunate kennel. I wasn't there, so I can't speak for sure, but that's the impression that I got from the police reports. And the latest one with the deputies is it was exactly that. It was a burglar alarm. The dog owner wasn't home. Babysitter was there. The dog got out and actually jumped up on one of the deputies. The deputy was able to lead the dog away. The dog fell back and then came back at a second deputy and bit him in the elbow. So it's just those three types of 4 people that went after the dog within 15 months gives me some concern. That's why I'm bringing it forth to you. Like I said, I'm not asking that the dog be destroyed at all. It's just that you conform to some of the requirements set forth in the county ordinance.
Okay, questions for Sheriff Schultes?
I guess I have one. We had talked about that a little bit, and that report is wrong. The dog was in his kennel on a leash at my pole building, which is across my driveway. It was, and the gate wasn't open. But I called an electronic gate. People don't know who lives there. You don't go past an electronic gate. Even if it's open or closed. You don't know the people. I mean, I know I don't.
And was that with the photographer or was that with your former?
That was with the photographer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, for our supervisors, any discussion on this? Any thoughts anybody wants to share?
Well, it sounds like he's taking steps to address some of the behavior issues. Since he's sort of been under this order already for almost 3 months, 2 months, I guess, 14 months. I guess I don't see a whole lot of difference other than just formalizing it at this point.
We definitely put a lot of more things in place, and I don't think it's going to happen again.
Other thoughts that supervisors want to share?
I guess my thing was, I know it was happening at the home and not any place else. So it was people that didn't belong there or shouldn't have been there or due to them there. But the problem is between the time limit here, 15 months, there should have been something done faster by the homeowner, in my eyes. After the first time something happens like that, I would definitely get on the stick right away, get somebody. I guess that's the only bad part about the whole thing. It took too long to get professional help in there to do something and to realize that this dog had an aggressive, behavior problem in that. So I guess, at that point, right now, my vote would be to go along with the sheriff's department.
Okay. I think one thing that I want to share that I think affects my view of this, I have a coworker whose young daughter was attacked by a neighbor's dog and has some disfiguration to her face because of it that she'll have for her entire life every time she looks in the mirror. In that case, it was the dog's first time acting that way, but when we have a pattern of an aggressive dog, and I think about that, that would lead me to support the sheriff's recommendation in the hopes of preventing something like that from happening again with this dog, who's very good around your kids that he knows. But, if the kids have friends over or something, I would hate to see something bad happen to a friend that came over. So I'm going to vote to support the recommendation of the sheriff. Other thoughts that any supervisors want to share?
Well, supporting the sheriff's thing, what's gonna become of the dog? What are we actually voting on?
Okay, so if we support the sheriff's recommendation, then the requirements that the sheriff reviewed, and I don't know if we want to go through those again real quick.
Sure, yeah, so the dog owner keeps the dog. The only way that he can alleviate if you support the recommendation to avoid it is if he moves the dog out of Washington County. So that's one way he could not have the dog being vicious. If very apparently he wants to keep the dog. So what I'm just asking is that he adheres to the leash and muzzle requirement. What that means is that the dog can't be on a leash more than 4 feet long. If it's out in public, it has to have a muzzle on it. It can't be tied down to an inanimate object, like chained to a tree or a post or to a corner of a building. And then there's an outdoor and indoor confinement standards, which are pretty stringent. The kennels have to have roofs on them. They have to be dug down into the ground. So those are kind of the expense to it can be kind of substantial. Indoor confinement, it can't be in a house with the windows left open, so the dog couldn't jump out of the house. There's some insurance requirements, liability insurance requirements that you need to show us. And I think if I'm correct, you said that you said some of the stuff you're doing already for the insurance, you said
We already had that. Yeah.
And then signs on the property. That's really the crux of it.
Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no further discussion, I'll entertain motions to either support or reject the recommendation of Sheriff Schulteis designating this dog as a vicious dog. Okay, guys, this is where you gotta make a motion.
But I'll make a motion that we support the sheriff's decision.
Okay, we have a motion by Supervisor Burke. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, second by Supervisor Milliken. All right, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so the motion does pass. So at this point, we are accepting the determination as a vicious dog. So that said, I think I speak for everybody here that we're glad you're taking the precautions now that you've already taken. And we hope that there's no future incidents with Strauss.
Do you have any time frame? Do you think you'll be able to conform to all of the conditions?
Well, I pretty much have everything in place. The only thing that I didn't like is where I had to build this new expensive kennel because he's an indoor dog. Do we have some type of restriction with that we don't have to just have that? Because the only thing that I didn't do, and I don't want to do, because he is an inside dog. The only time he's outside is when he's just hanging out there, going to the bathroom and stuff like that. Otherwise 80-90% of the time he's either with me in my truck or he stays in the house.
Yeah, I think the ordinance just reads if you're going to keep him outside, he has to be in that confinement.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, we don't keep him outside at all.
But he can't be tied up outside unless independent. You have a human being holding onto the leash and he's outside.
Right, I understand.
Yeah, then I kind of. Am I
You're
reading it
correct,
right?
that's exactly right. It's not a requirement, you have to, it's not an outside dog.
Oh, okay, well, then we already have a muzzle. We had that the whole time. And I just, I mean, I'm fine with either way. I just didn't like it being declared vicious, and I don't think he's vicious at all. It would be different for if he was running around biting people, but he's not. But when somebody walks in your garage, a complete stranger, or comes to your house and a complete strangers and stuff like that, that's what the dogs do.
Okay. Well, I think we've got this issue resolved, so I think we're ready to move on to the next agenda item. But I thank you for coming in for your time.
Sure.
All right, thanks. Yep. All right, let's, on the next one, we have 2 corrections officers here, and we have an acknowledgement of the good work we did. So let's move that up to the next agenda item.
Okay, well, gentlemen, step over here for me. So what I've been trying to do is to kind of recognize the good work that our staff is doing. So sometimes I can do it, it just kind of depends on the timing of it. Sometimes it's in the full county board, sometimes we have a public safety committee. But particularly, I think it's important in the corrections division that you guys know the good work that they do, because it's not often, people don't actually see what goes on in our jail very often. So that's why it's just, I think it's very important that you guys hear about it. So this is a correctional officer, Andrew Lohr is on to my far right. It's a correctional officer 2, I'm sorry. And how long have you been with the sheriff's office?
With the sheriff's office, almost 10 years, in the jail, 5.
5, okay. All right. This is correctional officer 2, Randy Berry. And how long have you been with us?
Just about 9 years.
9 years. Okay, so they're both veterans officers of the jail, and this results from it's one. The verbiage of both of these are very similar because it's the same incident. They were actually partners that were working in this particular area. So the first one I'm going to read is for correctional officer Randy Berry. It says, whereas on March 1st, 2020, and again, I'd like to do these things a little more timely than this, but just didn't work out because of the COVID thing. But the correctional officer Randy Berry was assigned to work in the booking area of the Washington County Jail. And whereas Officer Berry and his partner, Correctional Officer Lohr, observed a male inmate via video surveillance demonstrating odd behavior. Officer Berry and his partner continued to monitor the inmate and decided to make face-to-face contact to better assess the suspicious behavior. And whereas upon making contact with the inmate, Officer Berry noticed a strange white object in the inmate's jumpsuit pocket. Officer Berry confiscated the item and began to closely examine it. While doing so, the inmate lunged at Officer Berry and attempted to destroy it by flushing it down the toilet. Officer Berry was able to prevent the inmate from successfully destroying the evidence. And whereas further investigation found the items recovered from the inmate to be 3 bags of cocaine weighing 19.5 grams, that's a pretty substantial amount of cocaine. Whereas due to Officer Berry's keen sense of observation and quick actions during a sudden assault, Officer Berry was able to keep the inmate from destroying evidence. That was one thing, and eventually led to the addition of felony charges on the inmate. And whereas Officer Berry exhibited quick thinking and great diligence to the duties of his profession during a physical confrontation with combative inmates and the apprehension of narcotic drugs that would have affected the safety and security of the jail. Now therefore be it resolved that Corrections Officer Randy Berry is hereby acknowledged for his professionalism and his dedication to duty. So I appreciate that. So I'm going to give you this, and I have just a pen that I'd like to give you too. I won't shake your hands, we're not supposed to. And the next one is, like I said, it's kind of the same verbiage. But whereas on March 1st, 2020, Officer Andrew Lohr was assisting in the booking area of the Washington County Jail. Officer Lohr and his partner observed a male inmate via video surveillance demonstrating odd behavior. Officer Lohr and his partner continued to monitor the inmates and decided to make face-to-face contact to better assess suspicious behavior. Whereas Officer Lohr took a position of cover while his partner made contact with the inmates and confiscated the items from the inmate's jumpsuit pocket. While the partner examined the items, the inmate suddenly lunged at his partner and attempted to destroy the items. Officer Lohr was able to help restrain the inmate and keep him from successfully destroying the items while calling on the radio for assistance. There's a lot of stuff going on all at the same time. And the further investigation, like I mentioned, was 19.5 grams of cocaine. And due to Officer Lohr's quick actions during a sudden assault, Officer Lohr was able to keep himself and his partner safe and keep the inmate from destroying evidence that eventually led to the addition of felony charges. Whereas Officer Lohr has exhibited quick thinking and great diligence to the duties of his profession, the protection of his coworkers during a physical confrontation with a combative inmate, and the apprehension of narcotic drugs that would have affected the safety and security of the jail. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Corrections Officer Andrew Lohr is hereby acknowledged for his profession and dedication to duty. So, same to Andrew Lohr. We certainly appreciate his. So you can see there's a lot of stuff that goes on inside that jail, and we have all sorts of technology to keep drugs out. The body scanner, it kind of depends on where in the process those people are. But a lot of it comes down to human intervention, human action, and human observation. What security cameras were you guys watching?
The adult receiving cameras in the booking.
In the booking.
Not like the monitor.
Okay, and they're fairly small cameras too.
Yeah,
yeah.
you can blow them up a little bit, but yeah.
So I mean, I commend them for their dedication and it could have been tragic to have that much cocaine in the jail. Captain, do you have anything that you'd like to add at all?
I'm very proud. A lot of my officers, they're constantly observing people, and it's just little things, little behaviors that they see, and once they follow through on it, these kind of things happen quite a bit. So I'm very proud of my officers.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
You don't have to stick around for the rest of the meeting.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Thanks both for your good work.
Thanks.
Okay, so next discussion item is the role of the Public Safety Committee. And in our agenda packet was the actual ordinance that defines what our role is. Are there questions or anything we want to discuss about that role? Okay, I don't see any discussion happening. So next item is introduction of department heads. So do those department heads who are here want to stand up and introduce themselves and what their role is?
So we're on Mark Benson on Washington County, just returning. I think we can do a little bit, a little later for a couple minutes. So I appreciate everything you guys do.
I'm Ron Schmidt, I'm the emergency manager for Washington County.
Rob Schaefer, I'm the lead investigator in my team.
And I guess I should introduce myself when I was up there with the sheriff.
All right. And then why don't we move next to our district attorney annual report? That way, Mr. Benson can give that report and then head back to the work he needs to focus on.
Sure. Am I okay for right here?
Sure. Wherever you're comfortable.
Maybe I'll slide it kind of get, but
Okay.
I'll be right back.
Yeah, don't get too close to me.
Marty, can you your back?
So I think some of you have heard this spiel before, but I'll just reiterate what we do in the district attorney's office. The Washington County District Attorney's Office, we handle all of the crime, any of the criminal cases that are brought by the various law enforcement agencies in Washington County. The main ones being the Sheriff's Office, as well as the City of West Bend, City of Hartford, all of the other Village of Germantown, Boston, Slinger, Jackson. So we handle any crime, anything where somebody can go to jail for. Police do the hard work, they do the investigation, and then if there's going to be a crime that's going to be charged, our office reviews the matter, then we appear in court and hopefully try to achieve justice in every single case. We handle everything from all the OWI second cases through sexual assaults, homicides. Unfortunately, there's tons of drugs in Washington County, as evidenced by what we just accommodation on drug overdose cases. We also handle the whole mid-Marine municipal court system that we don't deal with, fortunately for me in our office, but we also handle all of the OWI first cases and speeding tickets and the like that are written by State Patrol and Sheriff's Office. Our office also assists law enforcement with investigations, and that's happening more and more frequently these days. There's a lot of work that goes on in more complicated cases with regard to drug overdose cases and even a lot of other burglary cases, robbery cases. There's the good and bad of society changing now is there's a lot of interesting tools that law enforcement can use. Surveillance, the phones is really one of those great tools that law enforcement has. Our office consists of 16 individuals total. There are seven attorneys in our office, one of whom is a full-time employee, but it's a shared position with Ozaki County. So we have 6 full-time attorneys in the office, including myself, and then another individual that's working roughly 2 days a week. We have a good relationship with Ozaki County, so sometimes that individual can work different days of the week and vice versa. We also have 9 county funded employees, including 5 legal secretaries and account clerk and office manager, and 2 victim witness coordinator and victim witness specialist. So our office is sort of a hybrid in terms of the funding sources. The lawyers are all paid, the attorneys are all paid by the state of Wisconsin. There was a time when the county funded one person for 3 days a week, but we ended up getting some additional funding, so that's not happening anymore. Most of the staff is all paid by the county, and all the expenses of the office, including paper and that sort of stuff. And the victim witness department, they submit a reimbursement claim to the state every year and that roughly comes back with about 50%. They pay roughly 50%. So it's sort of a hybrid on where we get our money from. With regard to 2019, for the annual report, I won't bore you with all the details, but I'll maybe bore you with some of the details. And then at any time, particularly at the end, if you have any questions, or right now you can ask me any questions. But our office in 2019, we had roughly 3,400 criminal referrals for different matters. That was down a little bit from the year before, but the number of defendants charged was higher from 2019 versus in previous years. I think significantly in 2019, we had an increase in felony cases. We're up about 3% from 560 felony cases to 578. And another thing, it's a trend that we're seeing is the cases that we're seeing, I believe, are getting more and more serious. In 2019, we had 144 cases that resulted in prison cases as opposed to 133 in 2018. So that's an increase of about 8%. So the cases the cases that we're handling are more serious cases and are resulting in a lot of prison sentences, unfortunately. As you know, just from being part of this community for a while, that opiates is a big problem. The heroin cases, unfortunately, heroin and opiates continue to be a problem in Washington County and in southeast Wisconsin. The cases are, we have from 2016 through 2019, we're averaging roughly 140, 150, 160 cases a year, just straight possession cases of heroin. We're doing a lot of different things with the opiate problem in Washington County. We're trying to address the problems in different ways. We started a couple of years ago, we started a deferred prosecution a program, a treatment alternative diversions program, where an individual would enter a plea to a possession charge, and then hopefully get some treatment that they would need, and then they would, if they successfully completed the program, the case would get dismissed. So that was a significant benefit if they could get the treatment as well as comply with the program. And that program is still in existence. In 2019, we did have we had 39 new referrals to that program. We had 29 new people into the program, and we did have roughly 21 graduates that completed the program. More significantly, we just have now instituted, it took a lot of work through support from the county, as well as a lot of stakeholders. We did create a drug treatment court. There's a lot of individuals involved. The sheriff's office, we needed support from the sheriff, from the jail, as well as support from the community, the judges, human services department. A lot of moving parts in this, but essentially what the drug treatment court is, and it's up and running. We now have 5 people in the program, and there's a few more referrals, people coming into it. And those are individuals that are considered high risk, high need. So those are individuals that but for drug treatment court would likely be going to prison. So they have the high need for drug treatment, but they're also high risk. So they are individuals that have done something wrong and would otherwise, but they also have drug addiction. And so what we're doing is we're seeing them, we're coming into court initially once a week. The court, they're getting treatment, and they're appearing before Judge Martins is the drug treatment court judge. I'm going into court on behalf of the state, and we have a team, we have a whole staff team, including a sergeant from the sheriff's office that is we're monitoring these individuals. They have curfew checks, random curfew checks, we're getting random screens, and then every week we're having what's called staffing. We have the individuals in different parts of the drug treatment court team, including the public defender's office, human services department, the sheriff's office, and the judge, and we discuss this individual, see how this individual is doing, and then we see that individual in court, and then they can get some consequences if they're not abiding by certain things, or where they can get accommodations if they're doing well. And ultimately, the program should last up to about roughly 18 months. And then if they can successfully complete the program, they can avoid a jail or most likely a prison sentence. They're also all on probation as well. So these are individuals that have already been convicted of a crime, but the alternative would be something worse. But really, it's really a twofold thing that we're trying to do. Is the main thing we're trying to do really is help this individual become a productive member of society and not become a repeat offender. And then a side benefit, of course, would be that if we're avoiding some jail and prison time, then society is saving some money there. But the real game changer is really trying to change and help this individual. A lot of resources going in to help the individual. So we're pretty excited about that. Over the past year, we also had several other serious cases that resulted in prison sentences. We're getting a lot of serious OWI cases. We had a couple serious sexual assault cases that resulted in prison cases, including one with a male probation officer that took advantage of a woman that he was supervising, and he did have sexual relations with her, which obviously is a significant problem. And that just goes to show that no one is above the law. I'm not above the law. Sheriff isn't above the law. None of us are above the law, including probation agents. And if they do something wrong, we can find out about that, obtain the conviction, and they will receive a serious consequence, and that individual did so. Also, in the past year, there was a significant positive benefit that happened, possibly with the help of Ethan and others. But I was a little, I wouldn't say skeptical, that's probably too strong a word, but I just didn't really think it was going to happen realistically. But the state did give us funding for additional prosecutors. So that was great. I was trying to be realistic with you in past times, and you guys, the county was kind enough to fund a county-funded prosecutor position for 3 days a week, which worked out great. And now the state has funded us an extra full-time plus this shared position, and so we're not, the county position has dried up, which is appropriate. And now that individual that was in that county-funded part-time position has been transferred over to the getting paid by the state, and we have this other individual. So that was a real positive thing. So thank you, Ethan. Thank you for individuals. I think Don, you were involved in that as well. So thank you for that. That's positive. Just a quick COVID update. I know we're all living in a new world, and some of the one thing that I have seen in our county, which I think is significantly different than other counties with regard to the court system, is our court system has not been shut down. Our court system is still. We were within my office. We had a ton of individuals that were working remotely. Not myself, I was coming in, but a lot of individuals were able to work remotely. But because of the technology that we had in Washington County, in the court system, we were able to actually still handle criminal cases by way of occasionally a person coming into court, but a lot of times by the most prominent way would be by way of Zoom video. And when an individual was in jail, the sheriff's office, we had that capability to have the individual appear by way of video. And the long and short of it is we've done some pleas and sentencings for those cases. So some cases got pushed off, but we've actually have handled cases, and we've done things different than I think a lot of the other counties in Wisconsin. We haven't just pushed things off. So I think that the foresight of the county has been positive on that. Now going forward, we're in a things are opening up, as we all know a little bit, but we are operating in a COVID world, and there's going to be a lot of extra challenges for the court system with regard to social distancing. And the jury trials have been put off for a period of time. That was significant. That is a significant component of the criminal justice system. That's going to be a little bit of a challenge that we're all working with within the court system. But the courts are up and running. And unfortunately, we still are seeing with the COVID, we were seeing a little decrease in the less serious cases, but we have seen an uptick in very serious cases, including unfortunately the drug cases. It's a significant problem. We work diligently with the sheriff's office. They have a drug unit, they're multi-jurisdictional drug unit. There's a lot of things going on with those cases, and unfortunately, a lot of drug overdose cases. So I just wanted to give you an update on our office. I really do appreciate the support that the county gives our office with funding and in other ways. I appreciate that you have with all members of the county stakeholders and sheriff. If you guys have any questions, I'm happy to.
Okay, questions?
I'm curious about the drug treatment court. It sounds a lot like probation in a way, but I guess how is it just to provide a little bit more weight to the supervision essentially?
It's probation and super steroids because an individual, say individual one is just put on probation. Okay, so individual one is put on probation, and once they're done, once they're sentenced and they're put on probation, I'm like done with them. The prosecutor's done with them, the judge is actually done with them for, I guess with one exception. There's two ways you can put on probation. You can have a sentence hanging over your head, or what's called a withheld sentence. If you screw up, you go back and do it. But the judge, generally, everyone's done. It's just really that individual is dealing with the probation agent. Now with drug treatment court, that person is getting a lot more accountability. There's more people involved. There's the probation agent, number one, okay? But they also have now, in addition to that probation agent, now they have somebody, they live in the community, and as they indicated, there's a sergeant in the sheriff's office that's coordinated with law enforcement. The person lives in West Bend. He lets West Bend know this individual, John defendant lives in West Bend, and West Bend will do a couple random curfew checks on that individual. So we're getting potentially a couple more contacts there. They're getting treatment. They're getting treatment, and then more significantly, they're coming back to court. In the beginning, they're coming back once a week, and then we're talking about them, and then they're actually seeing. They're seeing the judge. They're seeing me. They're seeing their defense attorney. And the hope, Randy, is that by having to see individuals, the judge, I don't know necessarily about myself, maybe it will hold them a little bit more accountable, and maybe knowing that they're coming back, maybe it'll keep them a little bit more on the straight and narrow. Maybe they'll at least potentially go to their appointments when they're supposed to. The whole point of the program is we're assuming that an individual is not going to be perfect, okay? Because they are high-risk ID, and they're going to have some stuff else. They might even have a positive screen. They're not going to necessarily commit the crimes as a game changer. But just having, just use is not going to be enough to kick them out. We might have to get some additional treatment and the like. We have a young individual in there, a 19-year-old African-American individual. Nice guy, but he committed a serious offense, and he was doing well initially, but last week he had some timing issues, like some young people overslept for an appointment or whatever. So we had a little discussion with him about the importance of timeliness, and one consequence was he used to write an assignment, like a one-page paper, half-page paper, as to the importance of timeliness. I'll get a report back tomorrow, see how he did on that, and again, the goal is to give them some accolades, some positive reinforcement, but also some negative pushes as well when they need it. So it is, they are in addition on probation, but they're getting a lot more services, a lot more intense.
And what are the requirements to go into that? They can't be convicted of a violent crime, and it's a first offense?
No, it's not necessarily a first offense. No.
Okay.
It's what we want as individuals that we're not involved in that have first of all, you have to have a substance abuse
Yeah.
significant substance use, and the crime has to be related to that. And we're not gonna have anybody that's, convicted of a crime of violence or, crime against an individual, with certain exceptions. I mean, minor individuals, again, just came to the program that stole her parents' car, okay? And that's a different scenario, she has a substance abuse disorder.
Other questions?
One other one, just in, as you said, in the age of COVID, are we seeing an uptick in domestic violence?
Well, that's a great question, and honestly, I think the longer this goes on, I think, and that's what I've been reading about, we haven't necessarily seen, I would say, an uptick in it. We have seen some domestic violence cases come through. I don't know whether that's I don't know whether there might be some that have not been reported or and the like. So I think the longer this goes on, I think there is certainly that possibility, but haven't seen a significant uptick in that per se. Just I guess the norm, the norm on that.
I don't see any other questions at all, so thank you for your good report.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your support. Appreciate it.
All right, next agenda item here is our radio project update.
That's us again. So you're gonna get sick of hearing about radio stuff at this committee. I'm gonna warn you ahead of time. So just for the benefit of since we have a fairly new committee, what I wanted to do is just kind of very quickly walk through the historical, how we kind of got to where we're at, and then kind of hand you off to Dennis, who's now is a project manager. Sure. Okay, not radio consultant.
No, I don't think consultant.
Okay, so the project manager for the phase 2 of our 700 system. But basically, in 2008, the county, the sheriff's office, kind of took over responsibility for a county-wide radio system. And that radio system is used by virtually every police department, every fire department, EMS, DPW, water utility, highway shop. So it's a county-wide system. And what it is, it's called a P25 trunk system. And that's an old radio system. You'd have one radio frequency, 454, 275, and then that person you're talking to has that same frequency in his radio, and you talk back and forth. That's how an old radio system worked. A trunk system that we have currently has a bank of all different frequencies, and when you key up your radio, it's more of a computer system that kind of just picks frequencies that are open, so you're not talking on one particular frequency, it's a bank of frequencies. How we got those frequencies is all of the municipalities prior to 2008, there was an agreement for them to give us those frequencies to put in the bank, so we had them available to use. So that all the municipalities pretty much gave their FCC licenses to us, where we could utilize those frequencies for the new system. Back in 2008, and it's still the system that we currently have as a foundation, we're using a VHF system. So it served us well. There's the debates of should have been a high band of like a 700 or 800 system versus the 400. 150. Okay. So, and the good thing about the VHF system that we have is that it goes long distances. The radio waves are real long, so they go really far. The bad part is that they don't penetrate the building very good, whereas the higher VHF or UHF type systems are more of that type of frequency that penetrates into buildings better. So we had, when did we do the initial 700?
700 started in 2016, but finished 20.
Okay, so in 2016, the county overtook a project to try to help all municipalities, specifically high density areas, West Benjamin, Hartford, Slinger, to help them with getting building penetration. It's really a significant public safety concern. So in 2012 through 2016, we implemented what's called a 700 overlay over the top of our VHF setting. Correct me if I'm talking right on. So I'm not a techie guy. But what that basically does is that the end user, the guy talking, the cop, the firefighter talking on the radio doesn't care what frequency he's on, but the computer picks whichever system is better. And if you're inside a building, it's probably going to jump on the 700 system because it has better penetration. What that 700 system was, it was an overlay over specific areas of the county. So it covered 3 tower sites, 4 tower sites. So it's on 4 tower sites that covers the high density area. That system doesn't help Farmington right now, the fire department will go or down in County Aaron. But it's very, very effective in the city of West Bend and Dermot and Hartford. We haven't had any complaints at all. We haven't had, so you don't hear any news, it's kind of the news type of thing. But I think that pretty much a consensus from public safety in general, and the DPWs and everything, that 700 system has been very, very effective and we've done it for what, 3 years now?
Since we've been tracking around 2019.
Okay. So the original system that we put in 2008, it's painful for me to say, but it's getting to the point where we have to look at replacement, because it's not only a radio system, it's a computer system. That's what it is. And they don't last as long as the simple frequency radios, which is painful for me to admit. So what we were proposing is that we move towards a 700 system in the entire county to give that same benefit to the firefighters that are down in town of Jackson, and the cops in Farmington, that same ability to be down in the basement and be able to reach dispatch. It is a significant public safety issue. So we had kind of developed a 4-phase plan to move into that new 700 system, kind of expanding that overlay basically to the entire county. And that's where Dennis kind of came in and developed this 4 phases of getting to that point, knowing full well that the cost of this is astronomical. I don't want to speak exact, but 10 million, 15 million, I mean, it's major dollars. So that's what's kind of painful for me. But what we started doing is every year for capital improvements, we've been putting in about $500,000 from sales tax money right now that goes into the separate accounts. And I think right now we have maybe 400 and some, almost 500,000, then another 500 is scheduled to go into it this year. So I think we're at about $1 million-ish in that account right now. So we've been working on the first phases of that. But what I was very, very leery about is starting these phases without having the input and the okay from the full county board. So if you'll notice in the packet, I copied the resolution 2019-50, which kind of laid out, the prior county board that this was the direction we were going, and if you're okaying us to go through phase 1, you're kind of saying that we're spending money that we're going to have to go to phase 2 and phase 3 and phase 4. So that's where we're kind of at right now. So what I kind of wanted to do is hand it out to Dennis, our radio consultant. I'm sorry, I said the program.
Didn't qualify.
Yeah, sorry. Project manager, sorry. And he'll kind of go through the phases that getting us to that full 700. Sorry, Dennis.
All right, gentlemen. Right now, we're doing phase 1, which is basically a baseline, looking where the system's at, working with our vendor, which is Harris. Used to be ComNet and several different names back in 2008 when we did the VHS system. So we're still working with those guys. And basically, we're looking at all the tower sites. We have put boots on the ground before the COVID thing hit. And we had the engineers from 4 different sections of Paris, Florida, Dallas, Virginia, one guy from my neck of the woods. We went out and surveyed with a company out of Madison, Edge Consulting, which which does all of the engineering work for the tower structurals and site development and things like that. We worked with them back in 2008. I worked with them at Madison Project. They're a real big company. So we have been able to put some boots on the ground, not as much as we'd like. This started back in February. We should be a little bit further down the road, but due to COVID, we're about 35% of where we need to get our baseline study. Go to the baseline study. This is to determine the radio propagation. That's how the radio talks within the county, how much penetration and the coverage to what Sheriff Marty was talking about. The microwave, which is your backhaul, that's where all your data goes through from all the sites. The tower structural, which is always overlooked to the last minute. Usually you sign a deal with Harris, Motorola, whomever. You get out there, they want to put these antennas at these heights. You get out there and you start doing the math on it, and the thing's over-structured. It's on a different code from the regulations, and you're in to spend a couple $100,000 strengthening the tower, which we've done out here several times. So we've got Harlan's group out of Edge that work as far as tower structurals. And they will also do the site needs assessment for the 700 system. Additionally, one of the things that the sheriff and captain back there had wanted was some additional frequencies. Originally, when we did the VHF, we had so many frequencies, 10 channels, 10 frequencies. 700, we originally went out with 5, which due to technology doubles the talk pass. So we said, well, we might need that for some GPS stuff someday. Let's get some more frequencies. So we're looking at 3 additional frequencies also, which is a lengthy process. You need to go through Region 54, which is an AMCO division for FCC FAA. That resides out of Joliet, Illinois. A wonderful drive with your board. And we're going to hire Carl Guzzi. Name sounds familiar. He used to be your frequency coordinator for the state of Wisconsin. So I know Carl a lot of years. So we're going to be hiring him to the tune of about 6K for those frequencies. So that's the things we need to do. And to Sheriff Marty's point, usually these systems are 7 to 10 years before they come up with what they call an end-of-life status, whether it's Harris Moto or whomever, Johnson, saying that we're not going to support that no more. Your dishwashers, we're not going to be parts of it. So currently, as far as this system goes, the 2 major things that have spiked up is when we did the last 700 overlay project, microwave capacity, due to the fact you got 2 systems going through the microwave system, which is your data, is at full capacity, and it's at end of life. 2008, 2008. That's one issue. Second issue is right now is the uninterrupted power supplies. UPS is at the sites. If there's a power outage, they'll kick on and give you X number of hours, depending on what your rain was. So those things, Captain Stacer's been piecing together with new batteries and things of that nature, but that's the danger zones where we're at, where we got to get things in place because we're having an end-of-life situation. Harris has designated a total of 6 personnel to this team, which normally, this is a backwards way of looking at a typical project. Normally you do an RFP, you put it out to bid. Companies come in, they look at the tower sites with you, they say we could do it for this, but if this fails, and then you got risk and then the assumptions, the price goes up, that causes change orders. Change order after change order after change order. It's a quicker process, but you still haven't done the legwork, which is a base. So I'm sort of going back to like one of the first projects I done in '98, where we're actually doing the base work first, know exactly what we're gonna need. That way when we talk to our vendor, and it's an upgrade, so not a bidding option, it's an actual Harris upgrade in the first piece. They're not putting more money into the future radio contract for the new equipment due to the fact the risk has been alleviated. We've looked at all the sites, we reinforced the towers, we're getting the footprint, the layout of the sites the way Harris wants it. So we're working with them on the back end. Normally they send a proposal team out, they spend 2 weeks, and then you've got a bunch of gap and potential money. So the fact that we got 6 people dedicated to this, that we've been meeting pretty regularly on, probably about 40-some meetings since February, lots of emails going back and forth with the movers and shakers, the guys you want talking, not the project managers, the guys that are actually developing the system. There's a lot of that communication going back and forth. Also, within that, the microwave being an important piece, it makes better sense for the county, Washington County, to go out and purchase the microwave system, which is a Nokia product, through Harris. That way you don't get two vendors in a situation complaining about one another's work, which we've all been in projects like that before. So Harris is working closely with Nokia out of Plano, Texas. Another goal of the project from the sheriff and the captain was to remove some of these leasing sites. We have two lease sites right now, Farmington and Aaron, and they're high dollar. I mean, real estate, putting a tower, antenna on tower is ridiculous. I mean, some of the costs.
On Aaron, we pay, I think it's like $4,300 a month every hour. Aaron, Farmington is a little less than that. I don't remember exactly. It's 2,600. It's a lot of money for lease space.
So it's wasted space. So they said, hey, there's something we could do. So we went back to Harris and said, hey, we'd really like to alleviate these if possible. So potentially they call a greenfield site. You build a new site somewhere else where a county owns the land, so we don't have to do rent. We have our own site. Yeah, there'll be the monies of the site itself, the tower and whatnot, but you're not paying that constant thing for 25 years or whatever. Typically is. So we believe we got a pretty good design where we can remove Farmington, that cost association right now by adding a site in the Newburgh area. The propagation studies, the RF propagation shows that it will work on Newburgh. So we've been dealing with the folks over at Newburgh. We got a meeting scheduled for June 1st at 6:30. Bill Eisenman and the whole team down there just to establish where that tower could go. And we're ferreting that out as we go. The Harris engineers are giving us all of that background.
So what's the rough cost of the infrastructure
For a typical site, cradle to grave, probably 600. That's what you'd insure it at. About $350 for the tower site if you're going with the typical one like we built that one in the Haas project, the Taki project. Yeah, it's $360K roughly for a public safety grade tower, a shelter, and generator set, and things of that nature. And then, of course, when you get into the smaller communities, like we did back when we were doing the 700 with Germantown, there'll be specific requirements. Germantown's a real nice area. We had to get a noise suppressed generator, and that drives costs up a little bit, but nothing outside of that number that I gave, usually around there.
And just one side note to that is also when you put a tower on, public safety is the #1 priority on tower, but you can also lease the space to other carriers to generate revenue off of it as well. We have with several more towers. So great.
Good point. We're looking at, what you got, farm, Richfield's got some leasing currently, and
Jefferson.
okay.
I mean, Slinger, Lovers.
Okay. So, potentially, we're looking at Aaron right now. That's got a high leasing area and put our own site down there. One of the requirements for ferreting this out is that you couldn't take any business from American Tower. You built your own tower, that's fine. You can put all our stuff on a big sturdy tower, but that's it. You can't have no co-locator. So we're exploring some options. Because that co-location is, better $4,300 going to Washington County than a vendor. We completed the frequency studies to say what the frequency cost association will be. So about $6,500. We're looking at 3 additional frequencies. Right now, we're sort of stalled out in the exact maps that Carl Ducey, the frequency coordinator, is needing. He's dealing directly with theirs. Once we get those overlay maps, we'll purchase Carl's services and start that process. Just to warn everyone here, that process is not a quick process, unfortunately. That will go into phase 2. There is some lean over from phase 1 to phase 2. We'll get as much as we can out of phase 1, but there is monies that was put into phase 1 that would require 18 to 20 months time frame to complete some of the tasks. So, sorry about this. It's been a while since I was able to get out of the house and actually do a meeting. I'm already a bad public speaker, this makes it harder. We do have multifunctional teams with the engineers and the project managers and the frequency guys. One of the things we did when we initially met was we opened up everybody's email. Our vendor here locally is General Communications. They've been serving you guys and whatever. Just to get all that information flowing, no hiding information. Let's get it all on the table. So that's been working out real nicely. We got a dedicated team from GCI. We got the sheriff's office we work with. We got the Harris guys. We'll be incorporating Carl Ducey. So that's been working out real good at this point. The Raptor study for radio coverage for the desired site locations is still up in the works, and I'm going to go through that in a second. So there's several processes that go on. So I gave you guys 3 quick handouts. You'll see the one major handout is your site documentation, your site mapping. You can go through the pages of this. It shows what the perimeter is, where the equipment would lie, what your easements are, real estate, all that good stuff. We haven't drilled down. This thing will double in size eventually because we're going to have to do the interior. That's where Harris is going to design where their specific cabinet equipment is going to go within that shelf. But to give you an example, if you go to the very last page of that document, you'll see a tower map. This is another one of Harlan's functions out of Edge Consulting, is to do a site mapping of what is actually on that tower. What antennas are on there, at what heights, what is the part number so we can obtain how much weight it is, how much wind, what snow loading, ice loading, all that good stuff. So we're at that portion right now. We've got about, I said 35%, you're being cautious. I got 2 more this morning. We've got about 5 out of the 10 initial documents. And what you notice is if you come over to what Harris is doing in the second document at the same time, and you go to like page 5 on that, the typical kind of sales type stuff. You'll see on Jefferson where they're wanting certain transmit heights and receive heights, microwave heights, what sort of bulkheads, that's where the antennas actually come into the shelf. And you'll notice when you look at some of those heights and then you go on to the Harlan's fine work on the big drawings, you'll say, oh my, there's already antennas at that height. That typically happens after you've already purchased the contract. Then Harris comes back and said, that's going to be a change order. We need to go up there, relocate things. We're identifying this now. This is the sausage making. It's ugly. We got way too many emails going back and forth saying, this morning's one was Kewaskum site. They want us at 160. They call me Bucky. They want us at 160. The tower's only 140. So we're ferreting all that stuff out now. So this is very beginning design stuff on phase 1. So Harris will be telling us where they want things. We'll tell them where we can put them. So if we got a deviate, say we got to come down 15 feet, Harris has got to do 2 things. Got to plug it back into their Raptor software, which is a coverage. See what is 15 feet lower on this leg of the tower do to coverage. Coverage is good, that's fine, no problems. We readjust Harlan's drawings to depict what can actually happen. And then on the inside, you know, what sort of spacing do you have for the actual radio equipment for Harris? How much amperage does that take if they're all transmitting at the same time? Do we have enough generator? And we're doing all those studies. So you got Harris and Edge working those issues for us. Another aspect, which will be most likely phase 2, we could pull the trigger anytime and have Edge Consulting do an electrical study because there's certain homes you have to get down for grounding levels on public safety grade. We could do that now. It doesn't behoove us to do that now because we're going to have to do it when the new equipment comes in. So we're sort of holding that piece, but they'll also be doing that study just to quantify we got a good grounding. When we were out there back in February, I want to say, we noticed that Wayne, which was a tower we built, and we gave it to the energies, that they're grounding from one of the issues causing some bad things out there. So there'll be some stuff coming back. We got to fix this ground ring, things of that nature. Identifying this all up front. So when we get to the time of phase 2, we can come with our team, that you guys who support us, your team, and say, hey, these are the failure points. This is what it's going to cost to make this tower good reinforcement. This is the cost of this site, and we'll be able to make a good decision on which way we go as far as the actual physical construction of the sites and site equipment. Lastly, we're spending this money now, which I think roughly about $380K for all of this. You could say, well, normally you would just get that from the vendor. Well, talking with Harris and Tim, who's our primary contact, the account executive, by giving Harris the information and telling them without a doubt those antennas to go at that height. We have this space, we're already permitted. That's gonna reduce their risk. It's gonna mitigate that cost. Therefore, we won't, we actually go in phase 3 to provide for actually purchasing the radios and the end user equipment. All that risk is out. So it's gonna drop the cost to Washington County. So you're gonna spend the money, why not we know what's going on versus the vendor? So that's why we did it this way, the phases. The next phase, after we complete all of this, would be phase 2. Phase 2 would be physically doing the painful work of building out the sites, getting them ready to receive equipment for the radio contract. At that point, if we wanted to expedite things in any way, shape, or form, we could always go back to Harris and say, hey, would you like to build out these sites? We could purchase shelters, if the shelter's 36 grand from you guys. We know they're not gonna drive the price up because we've already got the baselines. So that's also an option for us. We can either do it like we designed, we'll do our own sites, or we could, if we wanted to expedite things, we could. So that is my quick update. Oh, one more thing. Just for anybody that's into engineering and mechanical. The last piece is just, this presentation is about 98 pages. I only burnt my printer out a little bit. But you will see on every piece of equipment, you'll see brackets, you'll see antennas, you'll see microwave dishes, everything about it. You know, what their sizes are, what their weights are. That's what Arlen has to do for every tower, plug it into his computer to do that structural analysis. So it's, the sausage making is going back and forth. There's a lot of hot and heavy, but we're remotely working and still working. Questions?
The only question I have, I was here in the first start. How come it took this long? Because we've been talking about the 700 series, all of this forever. Actually, from the very start, because there were so many dead zones. That was either Band-Aid to take care of all.
You're talking back in the Hetzel days, that time frame? Yeah, well, I was on the other team back then. The Washington County team wanted to go with the VHF at that time. So that's why we're here now. And the advantages of that is your, I can't remember what county I'm in, your sister county over at Ozaki, they're at 800. So it makes for a lot more synergies between your two counties working together too. So I think things have changed a little.
You're probably right, main site, we probably should have.
It was all.
It was, yeah, because this requires more tower sites, because this goes less, so you need more infrastructure to do it.
I remember the times when it was like pulling teeth to get new batteries for these things. I mean, that was major, just to purchase batteries that had to be done. This should have been there.
Well, I'm glad that's your question. I thought you were going to hit me on that alternator back in front.
Yeah, well, I put that on next.
I appreciate that, my brother.
Yes, sir. I just happened to be Tom Barron, supervisor. So what is your plans to build?
Yeah, that's what we're looking at currently. We're having our original plans, throw Aaron in. We looked at some of the language yesterday that Captain Stacer had sent me, and that could be interpreted multiple ways. But then there was Captain Stacer hit me with different plots of lands that potentially would work. So when I get the plot of land like I got from yesterday was Aaron, right? I forward that off to Harris Engineering. They throw it in their Raptor, and they'll do a study to see if do we maintain the same level of coverage? Does it get better? Does it get worse? If it remains the same, and we're able to move 2 miles to the south at that one plot of land.
So just to your concern is there's going to be some conversation with Tom Aaron, because there's property that we're going to look at that might work for this. And so it's kind of like what we're doing in Newburgh right now is working with the local government units to say, all right, is this something you're open to? So we would be doing the same thing with Aaron if we could move off that tower.
I've got one question. The property that we own, and learn already, is that what you're talking about? Where
was that?
I'm not sure exactly where it is, but we've had it for sale forever.
Remember the March Woods?
I don't remember what the name of it was.
There was a
Section of land on Highway Q that was sold.
Was that one?
Yeah, the one that we flip-flopped a little bit with.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
As we make the transition, you basically have to have the new system fully operational and not the other one, or is it a segmental thing, or?
Well, we're talking about that right now because that puts a heck of a load on the towers when we have double the microwave
Yeah.
dishes and you can only do it for so
You're
long.
talking about power capability.
Yeah,
all that kind of
exactly.
Stuff, I mean, now you gotta have, basically.
Yeah, bigger UPSs and things of that nature. What we've decided, or what the engineers, myself, I'm not that smart, but the engineers have decided we could do link by link as we're doing the microwave, so we can alleviate that structural problem. So there is gonna be a time that when we are cutting over from VHF full 700, there will be times that the system will be down for hours while construction's going on. But we're trying to alleviate that specifically so we don't have to beef up the towers so much cost that, you know, you're only gonna have a dish, two dishes residing on there for 3 weeks' time. That's no problem in July. In January, that could be a very bad problem. So that's how we're trying to manage it. That's gonna be a dance. Good question.
That's called extra money that's been asked for.
Maybe something like a change order. I know counties don't like change orders. I don't like reading change orders. Any other questions?
One for Sheriff Schulteis. Want to reiterate when we're providing those equipment for all the other communities?
Oh, yes. So one of the just to inform the group of one of the hot topics is when we originally built the system back in 2008. Thank you very much for reminding me of this. Because the old system, they were giving us the frequencies. What we did is we paid for virtually everything for the municipality. So every fire truck, every DPW truck, police, everything. We bought the mobile radios that go inside of the vehicles. We also replaced all the portables that they carry on their belts. And that was really because their old system would be obsolete. We need that cooperation to have those frequencies in our trunk system. When we went to the 700 system overlay, we took a little bit of a different approach. I always kind of have the example that we built the highway now, the infrastructure, the 700 overlay, built the highway. You could keep the Chevy, the old portable, and it would work. It would ride down the road very, very well. Or if you wanted to upgrade to the Cadillac, and it's a bad example, but we said if the municipalities want to do that, they had to purchase their own radios to be on the new system. Everyone did because they wanted to be on the new system. The decision that the county board and this body will have to make the recommendation for is moving forward, if we go to that 700 system throughout the entire county, do we rely on the model that we originally had back in 2008 where we supplied everything? Or do we say that municipalities should have to buy their own radios? The position that I'm taking that I think is the right way to do it. But you have to remember, when we go to the 700 overlay, their old radios are obsolete. They will not work. They're recycled. So they are non-functional. Very similar to what happened in 2008. So I think the right way to do it is to take that 2008 model and using county-wide money. And I think the county executive said that. I want to speak a little bit to this, but I don't want to speak more than but this is a county-wide system that is used by everyone in the county. That I think it's an appropriate use of sales tax money, for example. But that's my take on it. There's several different, some supervisors might think, well, no, these municipalities need buy-in and they should have to pay their fair share. I guess that's not for me to decide, but I would rather see it the way we did it in 2008 versus 2012.
Well, essentially, you're saying when the overlay came in, it was optional.
Yes.
And now in this case, the county's making a decision to go with this new system and then
They will have the
enforcing.
ability
And I would say for our functional team, our supporting team, we use the language, a replacement of light equipment. Because we're having some fun stuff over at the other county with some of the municipal chiefs, I'll just say, where they feel the need to think the county needs to buy an exorbitant amount. So I think we treat this like an arms room. Hey, you're turning in air at M16, you get it in M16. You're not getting a 203 or something like that. So replace light equipment. Works good. You still have battles, but.
All right, I think we've run out of questions on this issue, so thank you.
Did I bore you?
All right, and I think annual inspection of the jail is next.
Yeah, this is very, very, very short. It's kind of just kind of an oddball state statute under chapter 59, where it's every year, either the county board or a committee thereof, which I'm assuming is kind of public safety, that we need to set up a time for you to come through our facility and see if you see any blatant violations, constitutional type things. If you, and it would provide you, if I remember correctly, a roster of who's in jail for what. And if you see any violations, you report them to our district attorney, who you just met here. It's kind of a formality. Just to say, we pass our state inspections flawlessly. There's always some little tweaks here and there, but the jail does an awesome job of the facility. But it is a kind of a unique perspective to actually get inside it. And so right now it's kind of a bad time with COVID. So I'm just kind of putting it on your radar that I would encourage not only this committee, but maybe the full county board, or at least maybe new members of the county board, that eventually we'd like to set up a time where you'd be able to take a walk through and actually see our workings. Anything else? I want to echo what the chair said. I do encourage everybody to come on board. It's a good experience. I'm usually the tour guide, so I'll lay a lot of information on it, which is very important when we make decisions in the future. It's good to see a person.
A lot of changes. They got a brand new surveillance system, which would be kind of cool to look at. And they do usually let us leave. Usually,
So
if you behave yourself.
Time frame, what do you think? So right now we're really close for any kind of outside visitors. I'm like everybody else, we're kind of waiting to see what the next 14 days creates. Happy to report. So far, we've had 0 positive cases. So I'd like to maintain that. After the next 2 weeks, we can evaluate how things are going, with more things opening up in the community. If our person is still looking, let's say, maybe end of June, into July.
I wonder if it makes sense for us to kind of tentatively plan to do the jail inspection as a conclusion item for the July meeting. And, just as a tentative, and obviously if the situation with COVID necessitates delaying it, we would delay it. But what are your thoughts on that?
Is it a thing that needs to be done in groups or smaller groups? Individuals or?
We usually open it up to the entire county board, so it depends on how big the groups are. I like to keep them, this size group would be fine. I don't think it's too much bigger.
Yeah, if we came through with 30 people, that Logistically be challenging.
Just during the year, this has to be done
Yeah.
by statute.
Right, just, I think it says, at least once a year.
Don't try to bring us back to bed.
I turned it in 2014.
Oh, yeah, okay.
West Bend leadership.
Oh, leadership group, sure.
And obviously, the state inspection is looking at all the real key details. We're not looking at a detailed level like that, just looking for the glaring violations, which I'd be surprised to see.
And it says the health, cleanliness, and discipline of the jail.
So you want to keep the group down to 10 at max? Is that what you're looking at probably?
Yeah.
Okay.
We can do multiple groups.
Okay.
If there's an interest.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, so July sounds.
All right. All right, sounds good. And then last item is time for future meetings. So right now, our regular meeting schedule is Wednesday mornings at 7:30. Does that pose major conflicts for anybody?
Evenings would be much better for me.
Okay, evenings are better for you. Okay. Sorry, two people on.
I'm not, I'm a mile away, so I can do it either way.
Okay, you can do it either way.
Mornings are best.
Mornings are best.
You asked.
So evenings are best for you, mornings.
Well, I don't think we'll be, you're not talking evenings, you're talking afternoon.
Late afternoons, like I think last time we talked like 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
So that's
Not in the evening.
not an easy, late
Yeah.
afternoon meeting.
It's like a 4 o'clock or 4:30 meeting issue.
I'll tell you when I can make it.
Okay, so
There's a
you,
lot of mine are at 3 o'clock or Eastern.
yeah, okay, so your preference really is mornings, yeah. Okay, and then.
I can still do morning.
Okay,
We're all here. So
I can do mornings.
okay,
I can make it work. I made it work the last 3 years. I can make it work.
okay, all right. All right, so it sounds like it makes sense to keep our time the same. So, yep. All right, and then I think that's our last agenda item. Yeah, so at this point, I think, do we need a motion to stand adjourned or? Do I-
You can do that, call the chair.
Okay, so at this point, we're adjourned.